Don't lose your way. Your mind, we have to be as one.
What's going on YouTube? War Storm here, coming at you guys in another video today. I know I've been away for a little bit, but I just took a brief kind of break to get away from Yugioh. It's not like nothing to do with the game itself. I think the format's pretty fun, but I haven't been going to locals quite as often. So I gotta just feel like, I was like, as much as I do enjoy the game, there's times and occasion we all need to take a short break away, and that's what I decided to do. However, what kind of brought me back to one of the things that brought me back to bringing videos to you guys was the new Deviritual cards, and they're actually very cool. And before I get to deck profile, I want to talk a little bit about these new ritual support cards, because they are very good, and what kind of decks they might help them in. So if you're unfamiliar with these cards, they kind of just work off of each other. So Talismandra here reveals a ritual monster to special summon itself, and then tethers out a Candle from your deck. Candle does the same thing, except it reveals a ritual spell card. So it basically searches out whatever your missing piece is. Now, they prevent you from special summoning from the extra deck while they're on the board, but typically you're going to use them as ritual fodder. And if you're playing them in certain kinds of ritual decks, such as, let's look at something like Herald. Herald, you don't really touch the extra deck outside of your Star Seraph play, so you can always do your Star Seraph play first before summoning these. The thing I would caveat this by saying is that this does not help Necros, which are probably, one of the best ritual decks. They're one of the best decks of all time, but they obviously are the best ritual deck probably ever made. But, sure, but that was kind of obvious. But the levels, they match 10, and that doesn't really work with Necros, because you have, if you look at Necros as a deck, Level 4 doesn't really synergize with the deck, because most of the time you're going to be sending something with Arclight to summon your one Unicorn. You're not going to be really ritual summoning your Brionac. You're going to be discarding it, so that doesn't really work either. It doesn't help Necros all that much, because they all require really specific levels. So, but as far as other ritual decks, obviously the Gishkis here are a great example of a deck they really synergize with. And Herald's another one, because Talismandra's an instant Herald tribute. There's just a lot of really cool little combos you can do with these guys, and they help a lot of ritual decks. And obviously the new Demise cards as well really work. These are coming out in Cybernetic Revolution. I can't wait to get my hands on them, because they're really, really fun. But anyways, we'll go ahead and get to the tech profile. So if you're unfamiliar with Gishkis, there's typically it's a very old ritual deck that came out during the Dual Terminal sets, during the Hidden Arsenal sets. I believe it was released to a lot of different hype when we got it in the TCG, because of the Heretic Gishki Hand Loop deck. There's typically two versions of Gishkis. There's the Hand Loop deck, which hasn't seen play due to the ban list, because since, almost since the deck came out, the deck was out for like a week or two, and then Mind Aegis, and Ghost Rocking went to 1, so the deck shifted to Zilgigas Turbo. When it came out, it wasn't a huge, outside of the Heretic Gishki variant at top of the OCG, it wasn't hugely relevant. I mean, don't get me wrong, Aquamirror is one of the best ritual spells ever printed, and it can do some really cool things. But we are in 2018, so that while the deck still does what it does. It is a very linear style deck, in that you summon your big monster, get rid of all the targets, smash them for game. It's a very simplest. Well, the deck is pretty simple at its core. And the nice thing about these new Deviritual monsters, you're not having to integrate, cards like, my older builds. I played Dragodia, for example, because it's a level 10. It's a hand trap. It works with it's an instant tribute for your Zilgigas. And this list has gone through a little bit of testing. I feel like this is kind of the final build for now. But I'll go ahead and get straight to it. So, of course, we are playing Zilgigas Turbo, so we're playing our only ritual monster is 3 copies of Gishki Zilgigas. It's the only one you really need. There's been some builds where I play the level 8. I can't remember its name off the top of my head. It's it's a level 8, and I would play it in some builds because it's pretty easy to summon, but most of the time I don't feel like you really need it nowadays. I would really play it because you want to keep your ritual lineup pretty simple. It was Levy here. Levy's level 8, so it's not the easiest. You can't, so I wouldn't know if I would play it. I definitely wouldn't play it nowadays, but it's something I've seen in some builds. But I like primarily focusing on Zilgigas, because once per turn, you can pay 1,000 life to draw a card, so that's obviously really good. And if it's a Gishki monster, you shuffle a card on the field into the deck. So it's non-targeting removal. It basically, once it hits the board, it kind of has to be answered, as soon as the effect is activated. And 2 of these plus a rail cannon here is game, so that's typically how your deck want to do. You want to summon 2 Zilgigas, spin your opponent's monster field, and then, attack them directly, then go stop max for game. Pretty simple deck, pretty straightforward. Then 2 copies of Gishki Beast. This was a card that wasn't out, I think, when the deck first came out. It came out, I think, in Photon Shockwave? Yeah, it's Photon Shockwave. But anyways, whenever Beast here is normal summoned, it special summons any of your level 4 or lower Gishkis. Very simple effect. You're running 2 because you do have other normal summons in deck, such as Abyss, Princess here. So it can conflict a little bit, but I always like having Beast because it allows you to recur any of your monsters, make a link rank 4 play. Then 2 visions and 3 shadows and 2 visions. This has kind of been a standard ratio I've ran in Gishki for a while. But shadow here, when discarded, searches out your ritual spells, and vision searches your ritual monsters. Especially with these guys here, you've never really needed more than 2 vision. The main thing they are good for is they are 1-card tributes for water ritual monsters, which means if you don't have the exact levels you need to make your Zilgigas out, you can simply use these as the tribute fodder. They help a lot with consistency, but you want Shadow more than Vision because it's a level 4, and you need ritual spells to keep cycling through your deck to get your monster, Then, of course, we have each of the Devil Rituals I mentioned earlier. One of the things that makes these cards really great is that they can special summon themselves with any, minor restrictions from your deck. If you're playing and they are a 1-card tribute for your Zilgigas, so the nice thing about them is they integrate straight into the deck without interfering with any of your plays. You can still use this and still do all of your combos like normal. So I find that, there's not really too much to say about these guys. You want to max out on them and see them often as possible. Then 3 copies of our Princess. A Princess allows you to tutor your Abyss here straight from your deck by whenever she normal or special summon, she can banish herself to special summon a level 4 lower fish straight from your deck. So it allows you a lot of deck thinning, allows you to turbo out your deck. And it's pretty standard in a lot of Zilgigas turbo builds. Speaking of Abyss, we're maxing out on our Abyss here because it is our primary searcher. It searches the entire monster lineup, I think, except for Vision, except for Beast, because Beast doesn't have under 1,000 defense. So that's actually really, really good. Unfortunately, it's a level 2, so you can't make a rank 4 with it, but you can still link it away and do other things. Then I am playing the 2 copies of Gamma Seal. I really like Gamma Seal in this deck because it allows you to get, the basic premise with this deck is that the problem is going second, typically your opponent is going to end on some kind of negation. That's where Kaiju comes in. Barring Trickstars, you're playing against True Dracos, you're playing against Magicians, are going to end on some kind of negations. That's where Gamma Seal comes in. I play Gamma Seal because it's a water, so you can add it back with Mistar Boy, shuffle it back with Moria Greed. It has synergy in the deck. I feel like it's the best thing you can play in this deck. The only other card I really considered in this spot was Mound of the Mound Creator, but Mound's not really that great, I think. I don't think there's as many targeting effects running around. Magicians have Ignister, which does not target, so they can bypass Mound's protection effects. It doesn't help as much as you would think. It depends on the format. If the format isn't totally non-targeting heavy, but its targeting isn't really that's one of the reasons I prefer the Gamma Seals over the Mounds. Then, of course, 3 Ash Blossom. You can pretty much swap these for any hand trap you think, but I just feel like Ash is kind of the best generic option. It's not as great against Pell Magicians, obviously, but I'm more building this with more of a, whatever floats your boat in terms of hand traps for this deck. But you don't want to run too many, more than maybe 2 or 3 tops, because obviously the deck is very combo heavy and needs its combo pieces. Then 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. This could be Twin Twisters as well. It really depends on. I've always liked Cosmic simply because I like the 1-for-1 True Dracos. Their spell and traps do float, but that's not necessarily as much of an issue anymore, which is kind of weird because they're playing a lot more Floodgates now. They only really have 4 trap cards that float with Return at 1, so you're really not going to be using Twin Twisters on their heritage or whatever. So I feel like that's one of the reasons I really like Cosmic Cyclone. but you could definitely play Twin Twisters as well. There's something to be said for that. The 1/1-for-1 allows you to tutor out your Tunable Princess without using your normal summon. Important thing to know is that Abyss is not once per turn, so if you have another one in your hand, you can summon it and then get another search. Pretty dang good. Then, of course, 3, Aquamirror. Aquamirror is an amazing card. Of course, it has the normal ritual text, but the neat thing about this card is that you can shuffle a Gishki ritual monster in your graveyard. And you can shuffle into the deck by adding a Gishki monster from your ritual monster from your grave back to your hand. Really, really strong effect. Allows you to keep cycling and tutoring out your ritual monsters, so it's pretty dang good. Then we have some 2-ofs in the form of 2 Moria Grade, 2 Salvage, and 2 Surface. To round out kind of our 2-ofs. The main reason I run these cards at 2 is they can be quite dead in a lot of situations. They're really good, but you don't really ever want to see them at multiples, and they can be a little cloggy. Surface is something I was recommended to, so I feel like at least it's worth testing. But I think, and in theory, it's pretty good because you can tutor out an Abyss and get a whole nother search. But it's up to you and how you feel. And of course, 1 Upstart Goblin. In terms of other draw cards you can run in this deck, Paw Desires is pretty dang effective in Gishkis. You run a lot of 3-ofs. You know, the chances of you banishing a lot of your main combo engine pieces is not that big of a deal. I honestly think Paw Desires is pretty dang good in this deck because you only really need 1 to 2 Xylogigas to OTK your opponent anyways. So it's definitely a card I think worth testing in this deck. I really don't think you need something like Manju because this deck is very normal summon heavy. That's why I don't play it in here. And I honestly don't feel like, you know, there's not much else I would really add to this deck outside of Moundbound Creator. For the extra deck, we have 2 Miss Starboy for our Link monsters. This deck is trouble, you know, establishing a ton of monsters. You're really not going to Link summon all that much. It's not the type of deck you can really fit Scapegoat in because it's very OTK heavy deck. It's a fast deck. You can't really fit something like that. So that's one of the reasons why, you know, you just have the 2 Miss Starboys. And then the 1 Cerberus. Cerberus is pretty neat for removal. I found it's really good because, you know, I found in testing that's a lot of times my opponent will have some kind of monster I can't get rid of. Typically, Magicians are going to have... It can evade a lot of effects. It only requires 2 monsters with different names, which this deck, any deck can do this relatively easily. And it discards a card to target a special summon monster and pop it. So it's not really going to be co-linked in this deck. You're mainly playing it to just remove threats from the board. I don't think you really need a Link 3 in this deck to get out of the extra monster zone because you're not going to really be using it all that much. So that's one of the reasons I only play these Link monsters. Then only have 1 rank 2 in the form of Sky Cavalry Centurion. You don't really need it, but I feel like you can make rank 2s relatively easily with this deck, and this is the best one, so why not have it in there? Then 1 Tornado Dragon and 1 Abyss Dweller for some more generic option. Tornado Dragon allows you to pop back row, which is really important for a deck like this. Abyss Dweller, you know, not too much to say. It's a water deck, so you definitely want to play it. If you have this and this out, it pumps up your water monsters by 500, which means your Xylogigas will be sitting on 3,700. Same with Miss Starboy here. That's actually really big. Then we have the Spider package. These are pretty standard in most rank 10 decks, and I feel like if you really feel like you need to run more, you can run 1 more of each of the spiders. But they're really good with clearing boards and pushing a lot of damage, so that's one of the reasons I really like having them in here. Then, of course, you know, it wouldn't be a rank 10 deck without, you know, Mr. Rank 10 himself, Dora. Dora's pretty dang good, but you have to kind of... Sitting on a Dora is definitely not what it used to be because, you know, kaijus and other things exist, but I do like having it in here. Then 1 Rail Cannon, you know, I don't really think there's any other rank 10s I think that are worth playing, but Rail Cannon's pretty staple because the extra burn damage after allows you to go for game. The 1 Baguska, this deck doesn't really have a lot of turn 1 plays, so having a Baguska in there is quite helpful. You can always just, you know, summon it and then link it away into Cerberus on the following turn. And then 1 Hope Wolf and Spider Shark is actually a neat little card. So it really helps to push damage because whenever a monster clears an attack, it can pump your opponent's monster down by 1,000. And then when it bites the dust by Valor card effect and goes to the grave, it can target any other monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So that's any monster. So if your Xylogigas is sitting there in the graveyard and it has been properly ritual summoned, you can bring it back. You can bring a princess that if it somehow ended up in the grave but probably didn't. And both these guys actually trigger on special summon, so you can special summon your Talisman and Candle and get searches. pretty neat little things this card can do. But most of the time, it's probably going to be tutoring back an Abyss from your graveyard to get a search on your opponent's turn. Then one copy of Shark and Totally Awesome. While the play won't come up that much because you need Mistar Boy and 2 level 4 monsters, which is a lot, I feel like you have the extra next space, so why not? So anyway, guys, this about comes to the end of the deck profile today. Let me you guys think of my Gishki list with the new Deviritual monsters down in the comment section below. And as always, I thank you guys for watching. It's Orstorm signing out.